My name is Laura Giddings and I am the CEO of the STEM Project.
Laura, what is the STEM Project?
The STEM Project, it started out originally as a way for me to become a freelancer in STEM and education. I had worked for a very big business prior to that, and unfortunately, like so many other people, after COVID, I was made redundant. I thought if I create something that I can control, I can have ownership over what I do next. And because I have always had this want to inspire the current and next generation, it started off more as a side hustle. So when I was made redundant, I then created this agency, or this limited business then, and then worked a couple of small contract jobs, and then did fall into a full-time job before Christmas because the cost of living did increase. But then in June this year, nearly a year to the day of me creating the STEM project, I then became full-time doing this.
Why are you so interested in STEM?
It's an easy but hard question, that one. I'm interested in it because it's everywhere. It's all around us. I can sit in a restaurant and I can look at the material that's in the sofa or a chair, or the wood that's there. You look at the food and you think about how long does it take to perfect that recipe, even right down to the drinks on the table. And I found out 2 years ago how straws were made in a very big high street brand. My nephews love it because I'm always getting them to ask questions. STEAM and STEM has always been an interest for myself growing up. My parents were hugely supportive of that. When a lot of young people my age were playing out on the streets, as we did back then, I would be indoors reading books and watching docuseries and wanting to be David Attenborough one day. And yeah, every kind of thought that I had or every interest I had, my parents just helped challenge me. The hardest one they ever got me to do was in regards to wanting a mobile phone. So again, growing up, we didn't need phones, but obviously they became more of a necessity for us. And I begged and begged for a mobile phone when I was about 12, 13. And both my parents worked in telecoms then, so you can see where this is going. So yeah, my dad was doing an Open University course, and he told me if I want a mobile phone, I need to understand how it works. Go and read those telecoms books and come back and tell me. So these telecoms books are obviously designed for those 20, 30, 40 looking up almost post-grad content, and there's me flipping through an Open University book next to my Cocoa Pops, just so I can understand how telecommunication works. And I did. I went back, told them how it worked, and they corrected some of the things that I misinterpreted, but I got my mobile phone. So yeah, I do credit my parents a lot because they did challenge me where it was relevant, but also took me to places that I loved visiting, the Natural History Museum, the Science Museum, even when there were new events and new exhibitions coming in that I would find online or in magazines, I would always ask to be taken there for the day, and do stuff like that, really. So yeah, I was a bit of a weird, unique child in that respect.
You definitely have a scientific approach.
Yes.
You've got that curiosity, you've got that wonder, inquisitiveness, and the ability to go and find answers out for yourself, which is like the perfect skills for STEM. Did you study STEM at uni?
I did. I went to university, but I went and did this degree after I had to do a 180 in my career pathway. So I went to Bangor University in North Wales, and I studied for a zoology and animal ecology degree. it is STEM in that it's incorporating conservation as well as biology and geography. But it was weird because it wasn't predominantly seen as a strong science when I was there. As much as David Attenborough was a big thing, people were looking more at the David Attenborough series through the eye of the camera, on how amazing is the camera, but not actually looking at how amazing is the fact that we're seeing this animal was supposed to have been extinct 50, 60 years ago in front of us.
And what is the absolute top goal of the STEM project?
The top goal of the STEM project is to kind of smash that glass ceiling. Everyone has got a different glass ceiling, and for so many it could be something as simple as jumping on a call and talking to a very big organisation. For others it could be writing or supporting their dream project, and for some of these applications I've read, one of them said she wants to be a prime minister. So I think, you know, the aim of the STEM project is to enable opportunity for those who seek it, and to make the difference. So whether they're working with us as we're content creators or consultants or strategy experts, or we're working with people who are supporting those projects, or we're doing more for our community, we open up every opportunity that we can and go right down into the what can we do to help you get where you want to be.
So how do you find out what help you need to offer?
Everyone's different. I think that's again, this is a skill and a trait I picked up quite early on, and again go back to my university days. Before I went to uni, I never had a very big social network. I was very much of an introvert as a young person. I went to university and I picked a university that no one knew who I was. I planned it all off my own back, and I just went and I said I am going to be someone that I've wanted to be, and I became a bit of a linchpin for different communities at university. And so I spoke to quite a lot of sports guys, spoke to a lot of the cheerleaders, spoke to a lot of the academics, the researchers, the swimmers, the DJs. Like, I just became a very extrovert person, but I did it in a natural way. So it's something that I developed a skill in, and it's something that I'm trying to help other young people, women youth directors, discover that within themselves, but also working with people who've worked in industry for such a long time to just look at alternative ways that we work with each other. I think so many of our industries, for education, industry and government, have been so siloed for so long, that we keep saying that there's a gap in schools. I think there's chasms amongst our industries, and we need to bring them close together before we can start talking about closing that gap. So it's how we get ourselves to talk to each other, and actually make an impact and make a difference. And not have the same conversation in another 20 years' time and another 20 years' time about skills and about roles and about sectors that just don't seem to be getting any better.
Yeah, it's really fascinating what you're trying to do, because I'm just trying to cast my mind back to when I was sort of studying and making that transition from academia to industry, and trying to identify back then what my glass ceilings were. There were so many glass ceilings, I don't even know where to start. But I guess the main one was the fact that I just didn't see anyone like me doing what I'm doing, and so I constantly felt like an imposter. I constantly felt like maybe I shouldn't be there because I was, you know, like a fish out of water.
Oh yeah, I have those feelings.
The STEM project helped with those kinds of feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. Helped, hindered, caused. I think. I went into creating the STEM project to help myself. And then I started when I was working on my master's in STEM and education, I met some amazing educators, told them what I was doing, and they were like, can we come and do it with you? Sure. So the whole kind of business model just evolved and adapted. And in some ways, I was kind of taken back. I felt like an imposter going, I can't be your leader, and that's not what I'm trying to do. And what my peers and what my friends and what my colleagues have said to me is, yeah, you know, you don't evoke a micromanager leader style. You're someone who's actually open, engaging, and is willing to enter into discussion and to debate, and that's what I love. Yeah, there are some weeks where I am crippled with an imposter syndrome. There's no such thing as no one having it, and as much as we say that we fight it and we battle it, every day's different. Some days are amazing, other days I come out of the sixth meeting back to back and go, I shouldn't be doing this. I don't know why I'm doing this. But then it all comes down to what happens next. And generally it's a message or a call or an email or something comes in that flips that switch that goes, you've done this and this is why. I've had so many organisations that at one point when I was still looking for full-time roles, between transitioning into becoming a freelancer, a lot of organisations asked me to switch it off. Would I turn off the STEM project to come work for them? Because, you know, there could be a conflict of interest. And I just stood my ground and said, no, why would I do that? Like, it's a conflict of interest to you. To me, I see it as a compliment. And it kind of just instilled in me that there's other people around me, that so many people want me to fail, and so many more people want me to succeed. And I keep myself grounded, knowing that every day is a school day. I'm not the master of everything. And I think the more I surround myself with honest, humble people, the more I will reflect those more good traits and continue to succeed in what we're doing.
Wow. I mean, with all that feedback that you get from all of these incredible initiatives, why aren't more young people going into STEM?
I think it comes down to what you were saying earlier, Shinny. It's about, you know, if you can't see someone doing that role, then why would you think it's for you anyway? It's the whole, you need to see it to be it. I completely believe and I understand. But also something I am passionate about is we're asking the wrong question, is why are people not young people going into STEM? I think we should be asking what is it they want to do. And then when we ask what they want to do, we can then actually go, well, did you know that is STEM related or it's STEAM related? Or did you know? And all of a sudden it's I see that now. And instead of, if we stop asking what they want to be and ask what they want to do, we'll actually open up more of an understanding of what that is a STEAM related project. It is a STEAM related sector. It's everywhere. It's in everything we do. It's on the phones, calls we made, the emails we send today, and the projects we're writing for the future. It's getting in the car, it's going to the shop. Everything's got STEAM in it. But getting a young person to realise that when all they've ever heard are like 5 key roles, it's really, really limiting. So we have to remove that limitation and get them to think about, what is it you want to do? Do you want to work with people? Okay, how? Well, I might want to work in a hospital, or I might want to go and be a volunteer. I might want to, okay, do you want to do medicine? Do you want to do physio? Oh, I might want to do medicine actually. And all of a sudden you're kind of going through a choice with them, as opposed to pushing them to make a decision about what it is they see today. So I think that it is happening. The tide is changing, the tide is turning. Something I saw last week for World STEAM Day on the 8th of November was a article came out, I think it was on BBC News, and I think you might have seen it as well, in that a young girl was in her classroom and they asked them to draw a scientist. So the stereotypical view of the scientist has always been a white male in a coat with long grey hair. This young girl actually drew a young female of mixed orient who was able to wear glasses and then actually had a walkie stick. So you get the idea that they were actually able to see that different people can be these roles. And that to me is a signifier that the tide is turning and that more young people are going into STEAM and STEM. But because we're kind of removing the labels of what it is now in some of their learnings, they're exploring and finding it out in a more natural way, as opposed to being pushed down that route, in which sometimes is quite hard to swallow.
Yeah, I mean, I must say I'm getting more and more concerned with two things, which is a combined problem. One, technology is racing so far ahead in terms of like even social media. I mean, so many young people consume information via social media, and the way they consume is very different to the way we consumed when we were younger. In the sense that it's just packaged differently. So on the one hand, young people have an advanced knowledge of technology, but they actually have less knowledge of technology because what they're consuming in terms of media is has less substance in a way.
I completely agree. I think it's that whole analogy, isn't it, of the iceberg, is you only see so much of it, but actually you're missing so much below. And I think it's hard because you want people to use the channels that are available to them. Like I go back to myself earlier when I was younger and I wanted to research something. I knew where I had to go for it. And I think, unfortunately, we're in an age where technology is amazing what it does, but it's also then developed this huge white noise in that so many young people become, and again, this is just my opinion, so many young people become maybe confused about what it is they can use that platform for. So Google, like we use Google every day. Everyone uses Google every day. But not many people would know. If you want to know more about a specific topic, you go onto Google Scholar. You know, the difference in search results is phenomenal. You know, if you're going to go on to social media, as you mentioned, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, the new one, which is supposed to be replacing one, which many people are trying to leave in their droves. It's another platform, but what are the aims of those platforms? Are we there to just open up communication? Are we there to educate? It's kind of trying to understand the purpose of social media, but also getting young people to understand what they should be using technology and the internet for. Growing up, we were told, obviously, you know, the internet had so many sources and opportunities for you. But even now, I still go back to the same 10 websites I've used for the last 10 years, because to me, that's my source of knowledge. And for some young people, unfortunately, they're bombarded with so much technology in the classroom, at home, in school, on the buses, on the trains, on the tubes. It's hard to kind of digest, well, where do I need to go to find out about support? Where do I need to go and find out about how I can book tickets? How do I find out the latest information? And it's sometimes really hard to navigate. And obviously we're still trying to battle fake news. We're still trying to get young people to use social media for a better purpose. I understand cyberbullying has increased again this year. So it's trying to, like, how do we ensure safe, responsible use of technology? And again, many people say it comes down to the schools to do that, and I actually would argue it's not schools' responsibility to educate a young person purely on social media. That is also comes down to family and social and peers who can help check in and be mindful of what we're doing, really.
Yeah, I mean, listening to what you do at the STEM project really makes me think further on the topic of content, but also uniting industry, which is kind of very mature, with young people who need to hire young people to maintain their industry. And so there does need to be a connection. And that's where I see STEM project is like connecting these two dots that are actually floating about in very different spheres.
Yeah, I mean, there are organisations doing this already. STEM Learning have been doing it for the best part of nearly 20 years, and they have a fantastic model which does engage schools with businesses through their Infuse partnerships, but also through the STEM Ambassador Hubs. They were probably one of my true inspirations for creating the STEM project, in that I could see what impact they were having, but also I could see what was missing. And working in industry for several years in exhibitions and events, and then moving into strategy with working at RS Components, I could see quite a few different sides of coin, which wasn't a coin, it became something bigger. And it was interesting because there's so many views that people have with regards to current generation, next generation, and they're also mixed, they're also varied. And this is why I think it comes back to what we were saying earlier, is this gap isn't getting any smaller because everyone just keeps arguing about what's causing it, and they're all blaming each other, and they're not willing to kind of step up and say, well, we're going to do something about it. You've had some amazing organisations step forward through COVID. The IET did a phenomenal campaign around digital poverty. And they had a fantastic charter of some of the best, brightest technologists, futurists across all different organisations in technology that were willing, and engineering, willing to kind of help take up the mantle with the government. And it fell onto deaf ears because it wasn't deemed something that could be put into curriculum. Curriculum today is a very big topic that we have conversations around every single day. I'm talking to teachers every day who are teaching every day, and one of the computer science teachers says to me, I want to teach students about AI, cybersecurity, but I can't because the topic itself is so minuscule in the curriculum. I still have to make sure I cover all of this over here, and the reason I have to cover that is because they have to pass an exam. So the innovation parts that we need are not deemed critical by the curriculum, deemed critical by the government who set the curriculum. And again, the government doing what they can today, and I won't get pulled into politics talk, but there's so much focus has come on to education and come off, and it's got to the point now that it's weird. There's a storm coming, and I have felt it for a little while now, and I feel like we're just getting into it. Is that educators are at their last wit's end. They want change, they want impact, they want to be able to teach young people about industry, they want to teach the key skills, they want to teach young people about empathy, about altruism, about community. They want to teach young people about safety. They want to teach young people about finances for mortgages and loans and cards and everything that we as adults never got proper teaching for. It's available in content, but only if it's off curriculum. And again, curriculum is key because curriculum means that you're learning to pass an exam. The exams only ever cover the lifespan of a school. And schools, unfortunately, has set this directive through the way that education is being built, systems.
You're making me remember that when I was a kid, I had a total disconnect between studying at school and learning and what that had anything to do with having a job.
Yeah, you never really got told why do you need to learn? Everyone asked, why do we need to learn this, miss or sir? But they couldn't tell you because they didn't have time to, majority of the time. And I do feel bad that we all have probably had this thought and attitude in school, but then when you're now on this level and you understand, you're like, wow, the pressure you are under, still under today, it's phenomenal. I'm a member of several education-based groups, Facebook groups, sorry, just because I want to understand what's going on in industry. So there's one group on Facebook which is predominantly there to support educators leaving education, and it is utterly soul destroying reading the pressures that teachers put under, pressures the teachers been there 20-30 years, but all of a sudden someone's come in trying to tick a box, said that what they're doing doesn't fit them, and then teachers are being pushed out, teachers being put under pressure. You know, they've been teaching longer than this other person's come in, and now all of a sudden their method of teaching isn't suitable, but yet they have some of the most inspired students. How is that possible? And yeah, the whole what are we learning in school and why is it relevant today is exactly that. And I think again, more is trying to be done. However, in the recent interviews I was doing, I did a dissertation on careers in the curriculum. One of the interviewees was a teacher who's working in middle school, and her words were, it's an overinflated curriculum and we can't put any more in, because if we do put any more in, other bits are going to have to be missed or taken out. No one is willing to take them out because no one knows what it is we need yet. But we do know what we need because industry are telling us what we need, but the government aren't listening, which means they're not changing the curriculum. Do you see this vicious circle keeps going on and on and on? And this is something that, again, have weekly, if not daily, conversations about. And I spoke to a very big tech company this year, and we were talking about how computer science and artificial intelligence is being considered. And this goes back to the conversation I had with the computer science teacher, is they've got a phenomenal opportunity to go out and develop and do more content, yet the biggest struggle is, how do we get into the curriculum? Because right now it's not deemed to be priority. It's a nice to have, not a need to have. And it's that
we really are going into an era where digital skills are almost more essential than maths.
Absolutely.
And, it's so behind. Listening to you, and from my own experience of trying to promote STEM, like, it's a really, really complex problem. So if I was to add a bunch of hashtags, is the most succinct way I can think of to like summarize, like, what would your hashtags be? Would it be hashtags educators? Like, who are you trying to reach?
I think there's about three or four main hashtags that we use, and I've seen other organisations start to use them, but also it says what you need to say without saying it. So we use hashtag business needs education, and we use hashtag education needs business, because at the end of the day, without either or, we have no business or education or industry. And other ones like STEM, they're the normal generics. Educator, education support, educator help, content development support. There are so many hashtags, but they're the two prime ones. But when I kind of look at what is available out there for social media and then engagement, I think more about how do we get more of a debate and a discussion going. And again, there are there's hundreds of hashtags. I remember doing a workshop once with one of our social media managers, and we just decided there's just too many. But how do you take the key ones? And I said, you can't. You've kind of got to go into each subject and pull it out. You have to create a debate. This is what I was saying at the beginning, is, there is a gap in education, there's a gap in skills. We know that, and it's always going to be there, unfortunately, because, like you said, technology is moving at such a rate, it affects everything around us, it affects every role. But the chasm between industry and education and government is the biggest it's been in what, 3-4 generations, but nothing's happening about it. And that's why, coming back onto the skin of it all, is why do we do what we do? Is because, you know, you can get across the chasm, you just got to find a way. And that's what we do. Like the STEM project itself, people ask, what do you do? And our response is, what do you want? Because there's no one size fits all. Everyone needs something different. And I think we've fallen into that copy and paste solution too easily. And some organizations don't need a ton of help, but others do. And I think just knowing where industry needs to be. So CSR, corporate social responsibility, was the big buzzword of the late 90s and early 2000s. It's now ESG, environment, sustainable growth, development, whichever their now plan or strategy is. But it's well, what are you doing about it? You've got strategy and a plan, great, tick the box, look fantastic, but what are you doing? Like, you link it to the goals, great, and what are you doing about that? You know, people talk about it all the time, but you very rarely actually see engagement and actual proper impact. And again, this is something that we're actually going to look at rolling out over the next years. We're going to be doing our own research into impact and engagement, because that's something that we're constantly asked, how do you measure impact and engagement? And myself and one of the other consultants in the STEM project, Charlotte Hale-Smith, has been doing this for about 10 years. She created her own STEAM outreach program called Flux. And we were talking about it, and she said, here's a phenomenal formula that I've been working on. And so we're putting our heads together going, how do we take this and actually apply it into the industry who are desperate for it? Because not only are they going to say, I want to do this, but I need to know that it's going to make a difference. Well, stop calling it a pipeline of talent, because that's very, very limiting. Call it a pool. You have a pool of talent. You've got a pool of talent today. Go and find out what else they want to do. Go and find out what the current generation wants to do and the next generation. There's multiple layers to it. And stuff like that is what we're spinning out on. Never thought we would be, which is exciting. But it means that we're moving in a direction that we've got all these ideas which will open up the world of research, engagement and impact, but also experiential opportunities and engagement and learning. So yeah, all ideas are on the table with us. And that's what I love about it. I've just got to be reminded that we are still only a bit of a year and a half old. So moving at a pace which is sustainable and economic. And we as a business, we are making money. I don't do it to make money. I am working on the coalface. I go into a school, if not once, twice a month, doing STEM ambassador volunteering, or if I'm not working directly with a school or a business. And the month or the days I stop doing that, I'm not doing it for the right reason. But I love what I do. I spent my birthday in Swansea Science Festival with Charlotte, which was amazing. I had a great day, a lovely day. And the reason I enjoyed it the most is because I was doing something I loved. And because I'm still doing something that I love, it doesn't feel like a job. To me, this is just something I get to do every day because I'm that damn lucky.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the biggest impact that you're having and will continue to have is changing the language. Because I think, you know, STEM has a reputation of being a bit stuffy, a bit for the privileged. It's not inclusive, or it's not kind of assumed to be inclusive or diverse. And even just changing subtle things like pipeline to pool is really just changing the rhetoric. And I think once the language is changed, young people will gravitate towards it more.
Absolutely. And this again, it breaks down that what I was saying earlier about white noise. Excuse me. So the whole pipeline to pool is actually something I learned through my master's. It's actually off research conducted by UCL, which is part of the Aspires program. So Louise Archer and her team spent 10, 15 years researching this. So they actually, again, we're taking learnings that are out there and applying it because it does work. We don't need to rewrite policy and practice because it is there. It's there to help inspire and help engage and educate us. You just need to know where to look, and that's why we do what we do. We know where to look. We know how to bring it out and apply it. But like you say, changing the language is the biggest issue. It's like, change it from be. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? You know, we're now of a generation, especially mine, where you're not going to have one or two jobs that will be your entire lifetime. You know, this is my 5th job since I've left school, like proper job. You know, I'd love to keep doing this for a very, very long time, but who knows where I'm going to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years from now. And that's what I like about it, is that I don't know what's going to happen in a year from now, but that's what excites me, because if I keep doing what I'm doing today, tomorrow, next week, I'll know whatever I'm doing then, I've done it because something got me there that I was enjoying. And I think, again, it comes around to those social pressures. So many of us have social pressure. You've got to go to university, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. Okay, but do you have to go to university? You don't have to go to university now to study medicine. There are now other ways to access that as a career pathway. You know, I go back to what I said at the very beginning. I got really bad careers advice. I spoke to someone recently. I wanted to be a vet when I was a kid. Spoke to someone recently who works at the Royal College of Veterinary, and she said, you know what, if you were to apply today, you would get in because you've got the learning and skill and everything that we were looking for. And I'm like, 25 years late, give something like that. So it's a bit of a shame, because, you know, I did have in my head, if I didn't find something that I was loving by the time I was the age of 30, I was going to push myself to go back to vet school. Kind of glad I didn't now, because I absolutely love doing this today.
Well, I love what you're doing today. I think it's so essential to bridge that huge gap that does exist between industry and young people and academia, and anything that really unites those 3 things, government as well, 4 things, is work that is really worthwhile. And I love the fact that you acknowledge that STEM really is intertwined. It's weaved in to our everyday worlds, and this idea of ESG becoming, you know, the new CSR is really why it is essential that young people have a STEM knowledge. It's not just about getting the best jobs and earning the most money and being, you know, having really impressive CVs and things. It's about change and sustainability and our futures and living with integrity as human beings, because, you know, past generations didn't think about taking care of our planet. So yeah, if there's one reason to go into STEM, it's just so that you can be part of building a better future.
Absolutely. And it goes back to what I was just mentioning a minute ago about these executive STEAM youth directors, which is actually, I thought it was a unique project. It's not. It's actually something which is taking place in Scotland, which is a youth leader programme. Doesn't happen in England. So I wasn't being original. However, apparently it's going to work. So I went out and said to everybody, like, I don't want CVs. I literally want to hear from the age of 14 to 17. You know, get in touch. I want you to apply. I want you to tell me your ambition. I want you to tell me your passion. I don't care what your grades are. I don't care if you're at homeschool. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what your socioeconomic background is. Remove the labels, and all I want to hear about is you. I want to hear what you want to do. Where do you want to go? What are your ambitions? Like, you've probably got someone telling you should be doing something. What is it you want to do? So we had over 100 applications come in, and every single young person, when I've said to them, why is STEAM so important? Because it's only 5 questions they have to answer. Why is STEAM so important for business and education? Every single one of them said it's interlinked, it's all the subjects. It's not just science, it's not just engineering. Everything connects together. So the more access we have to that today in school and business means we'll be better in the future. These are 14 to 17-year-olds. And I'm like, so you know it. So what's the issue on the other end? The other end being going to industry, going into business. What is not happening to keep that, I suppose, keep people coming into business? More young people want to go out, more people want to create better, bigger worlds for themselves. So many young people, like I say, want to be a prime minister. Someone's told me they want to redesign space travel. One of them, I had to Google their theory that they mentioned was really interesting to them. Connected fusion energy and the Hyperloop transport technology. And that's what they want to work on. She's 15. And I was like, Google academic for this one then. So yeah, it was really interesting because I could hear their voices, and that was what's most inspiring. My biggest problem I'm now going to find is that I can only pick 20, and I've got something like 70 or 80 who are shortlisted. But then what I am looking at is, as much as we've got projects coming in that we're working on and we're going to be developing more in-house, I've actually been reaching out to some of the big partners that I work with. I said, look, I've got some amazing young people I've got coming in. What projects have you got coming up that we can help with you on? So I've got some opportunities in Scotland for Institute of Physics. I've got some amazing opportunities coming up with some local STEAM fests. I've got another organisation known as the Youth Group, which is headed up by a young man called Jack Parsons, who is a very inspiring young man who has done so much for young people and business over a very, very short period of time. And we're going to be talking in the new year about how we can get these more, again, young people into business and get them round the table with the head of all of these big FTSE 150, 100 businesses who need to hear it from the horse's mouth. I think that's what I recognise what was missing so quickly is we're all talking about, but no one's actually talking to the people that we're talking to. So bring them in and then make the change. Stop talking, but make change.
Well, Laura, you really are sparking change and trailblazing and all the rest of it. Like, I think we could talk for hours on all the impacts that you are making, because I can see why you struggle to like find just one example. You know, and it's been amazing to talk to you. Thank you for what you're doing, because it's kind of like it's kind of a bit like I don't know, creating fusion, like just out of this chasm, as you've called it. Like you're doing something so essential and sparky. Thank you for giving us a tiny insight to this giant iceberg that you're working on. I wish you all the best, and it's been so amazing to chat to you today. Thank you.
Excellent. And yeah, look forward to speaking to you again soon. But thanks for the time. It's been amazing.